So today's thoughts from 5D is going to be on the subject of grit and stick-to-itiveness. You know, again, I just want to reiterate, thoughts from 5D is my little soapbox to say things that hopefully you already know, but say them again. And I just find such tremendous value in hearing the same things over and over. And I've let go of my need to not repeat, right? To not be boxed in. Oh, yeah, this guy, he just always talks about the same thing. Yep. You know, some of my favorite musicians, like Jack Johnson, they just make the same song over and over, and I like it. I mean, I haven't listened to Jack Johnson in many years, his new stuff, but you know, stylistically, it's basically the same. And you know, Eminem has just returned to form. Like his newest album sounds the most like his oldest albums in a long time, and it's like the best one, more or less, right? I haven't listened that closely, but you know, that's the vibe I get. And so yeah, I wasn't really intending to say this, but you know, on the topic of grit and stick-to-itiveness, it's like step one is just figuring out like who are you? What's your shtick, you know? And that takes a lot of time. And in that process, like that's a big part of where the grit and stick-to-itiveness is required, because you're kind of like flailing. Some of you may know the great Ira Glass interview. He's a NPR guy from All Things Considered. I think he was a lot more culturally relevant a decade ago, but he talked about how, you know, you develop taste before you develop capacity, right? So it's like people that end up being good often they're very opinionated on what is good, and they're acutely aware of the fact that they're not it. They are not good, but they know what good is, and it's very painful. And you know, that like what is required in there is, you know, perseverance. Grit and stick-to-itiveness are basically just synonyms for perseverance, and a willingness to be knocked down over and over again, and lose your way and try another thing, and then this fails and that fails. Another one I like a lot is Peter Levels, Levels.io on Twitter. You know, he's pretty famous now, and you know, he started Nomad List, which is like the biggest digital nomad website on planet Earth, and now he's started something called Photo AI, which is basically like headshots done by AI and interior AI and photo AI, which are, you know, basically used for interior design as an alternative to, you know, sketching something up. You use AI to get a sense of what you want your space to look like, right? And he's generating, I think, you know, millions of dollars a year, just him, more or less. And people often have a kind of like must be nice attitude. Shout out to Big Bear on his trajectory, and he always points out that like 95% of the things he did failed, right? And failure is par for the course, you know, to say the least. And it's just not negotiable whether you are willing to persevere with a grit. Grit, for those that might not know, I always assume that's one of my things. That's one of my like foibles, maybe. I sometimes I think it's one of my best traits, but I think it's also potentially one of my foibles. Is that I just reference stuff, and most people have no idea what I'm talking about. Angela Duckworth is this researcher who studied grit, and grit is the ability to persevere, more or less, you know, just to like, this is what I'm gonna do, and I don't care how many times I get knocked down. You know, Eminem on his the latest track, Toby. I've had it running through my head, for days now, just on a loop where he said, "Been knocked down so many times, can't count." Then we're to John Manziel, odd man out. We're to John Manziel, who was a NFL prospect that just didn't pan out. Sometimes things do not pan out. Odd man out. We're to John Manziel. I might be off when I put myself to the test on lyrics. I often get them wrong, even though when I'm not, I get anxious or something. But I have just resonated with that particular bar so much. Been knocked down so many times, can't count. Sometimes things do. Oh, that's it. Sometimes things do not pan out. Knocked down so many times, can't count. I can't remember which one. I might have inverted them. Anyway, that thing of like when you really, and then you think about Eminem's story, right? Because at very first glance, someone like me, I'll just speak for myself, would be like, wow, Eminem, maybe arguably the greatest lyricist of all time, and sold hundreds of millions of records and relevant for 2 decades and so lucky. But then you look at his actual life, and it's been woo, a roller coaster to say the least, whether it's like, almost dying from, hip hop stuff, or almost dying from drug addiction and, failed relationships and single dad and man, and, going through this phase of his music not really hitting the way it once did. And, it sounds great to have all of that success, but most people who like Ira Glass is a great example, right? Ira Glass, I said was like, yeah, I think he was like more relevant like a decade ago, right? And I'm almost positive that's the truth. And Eminem just fucking kept standing up. Like the song I'm referencing right now features a rapper named Babytron, right? Babytron is like from the Lyrical Lemonade generation, which is kind of like the elite mumble rappers. That's totally like, please don't clip this. But that's kind of where it comes from. This guy Cole Bennett, who's a music video director, he sort of became like a thing, and now it reached the level of Eminem. He became a thing with the SoundCloud rappers, making music videos for them, and became, basically the biggest thing. And now he does Eminem, and now Eminem is collaborating with, one of the Lyrical Lemonade rappers, Babytron, who's from Detroit. But point being, Babytron is probably like at most half Eminem's age, like at most. And I would imagine that the vast majority of people who would ever see this video like have no idea who Babytron is, right? So Eminem, and that's what, my point is that that's what happened with Ira Glass. Ira Glass like stayed as like this, what do they call that? Like lipstick liberal or something? I think it has something to do with like lipstick on the wine glass or something. But he was relevant because that whole milieu was relevant while he was relevant, meaning like knowing NPR and having tote bags and starting to shop at Whole Foods, and like that shit is fucking done, bruh. We're in the age of TikTok and shit, and Ira Glass didn't update. And my point is that Eminem did. And in order to update like that, bro, that shit's hard as fuck. Like you're older, you've gone through shit. You have to, in some sense, like start over, and like you can be whack, right? Because now you're old, and you're like maybe in some level like trying to stay relevant, and that can come off as super try hard. So, it's a total lifelong journey, and the core thing is just like realizing, first of all, who you are, right? Like Eminem got back to basics at some level, right? And it's like you can go away from who you are for a long time, and maybe you have to experiment and like see about different parts of yourself that you hadn't explored. But increasingly I am coming to a place of peace with the reality that I will be one day tossed in the dustbin of history, right? And I'm talking about like if I am wildly successful, right? I mean, either way, but it's like whether one person remembers or, a million people remember. It's like, oh yeah, that guy, he always talked about like you got to like do the things that are hard and you got to keep persevering and like you don't give up, but trust me man, I know how hard it is and I empathize with you, but you got to do it anyway. And he just said that shit like over and over and over and over. But again, I look at all of these I look at Eckhart Tolle, I look at Abraham Hicks, I look at Bashar. That's what people do. And I think I just haven't gotten it. I haven't like gotten it through my head that like that at some level is what life is. I have wanted to just jump around so much. And now that I arrive at this point where I no longer want to jump around so much, it's like, oh, I thought this was like a bad thing. I thought this was like the end of the end of the end. But actually, when I look around at people, like you don't see Dr. Dre making like a lo-fi album or like a East Coast boom bap album, right? He has a thing. People have things. And so in order to find your thing requires a tremendous amount of grit and stick-to-itiveness. And then once you find it, you have to like let that shit, you just have to repeat at some level. Of course you have to, and then in order to stay relevant, right? Like at some level, I'm more relevant because I'm familiar with the Eminem song Toby and Cole Bennett and Lyrical Lemonade and Babytron than I would be if all my hip hop references were like about Gangstar, right? Or Tribe Called Quest or something, right? There's nothing, obviously that's like all incredible, timeless shit, but like we're in 2024, and are you able to keep without chasing it, without chasing trends and being like, oh yeah, now like I don't like trap, right? I get it, kind of like but it's not really my thing. But so it's not like, my point is that you don't chase what things you don't like, but you have to keep looking for new things that you do like. You have to keep putting in effort repeatedly for the rest of your life, for the rest of eternity, if you believe in God and reincarnation and parallel realities as I do. And that's the thing of it. And it's simple but not easy, like the vast majority of the good things in life.
Otis5D.xyz.
Go fuck yourself.